Okay, I'm live. YouTube's up, Twitch is up. Let's go post that out. Do. All right, let's wait for the dashboard to catch up here. There we go. All right. Well, I am back from vacation. So let's just jump right on into it. We're going to be doing some articles today. Also catching up on YouTube. I think I want to do like at least two a week, two YouTube videos a week. So we're gonna catch back up on that train a little bit. So let's go get the first article here. So let's get this. All right. So let's add a marker. Marker. Productivity equals never ending text file start. Okay, cool. All right. So now my productivity app is a never-ending txt file. All right. So before I start reading this, so I started out not in this camp, and then probably like half a year ago when I started really getting into NeoVim, and I found regular text editing to be really annoying, even for notes. I started to do this. I started to put all of my notes into text files, and I built a system. Actually, I guess before I fully moved over, I built a system for cataloging my notes, and I'll get into what that is in a little bit. But let's read this article. Let's see how he does it. Let's see what his setup is and why he thinks doing this is a good idea. So the biggest transition for me when I started college was learning to get organized. There was a point where I couldn't just remember everything in my head, and having constantly to keep track of things was distracting me from whatever task I was doing at the moment. So I tried various forms of to-do lists, task trackers, and productivity apps. They were all discouraging because the things to do kept getting longer, and there were too many interrelated things like past meeting notes, calendar appointment, idea lists, lab notebooks, which were all on different systems. I've had this problem. I pretty much for the for my things I need to do, for the longest time I've been using Trello. And that just like that's my to-do list, that's my reading list of like articles that I'm supposed to read, and for like articles like this one I throw in there too. And then I also keep all my to-dos, like I just said, I think. And so that keeps my life organized for the most part, and that got me through college. But then there were more things that I needed to keep track of, like things that I needed to say, like pieces of code snippets, links to things needed to be saved. All of that needed somewhere to go, and for that I chose Notion. And I still have most of my Notion notes here. Most of them are in this knowledge base, right here, and pretty much everything I do is just linked from my website public. And I found I don't add things to this as much as I used to. Mostly because I don't find myself saving things as much as I did once upon a time. But this was incredibly helpful for getting through a bunch of different problems for repetitive tasks. So this is my system for now. I would like to take all of this out of Notion and put it into something with Markdown. I know Obsidian is a cool thing that a lot of people are using, but I don't know if it has Vim motions. And I'd almost like to just move to pure Markdown for this, but anyway, that's my two systems anyway. I gave up and started tracking in a single text file and have been using it as my main productivity system for 14 years now. It's so essential to my work now and has surprisingly scaled with the growing set of responsibilities. That I wanted to share this system. It's been my secret weapon. Prerequisite: a calendar. The one outside tool I use is an online calendar. I also use my Gmail calendar and my work calendar both. They're both together so that I can see all of it on one calendar, and that's a huge deal. And I put everything on this calendar. I even things that aren't actually for a fixed time, like make a coffee table at the workshop, or figure out how to recruit new PhD students. I'll schedule them on a date when I want to think about it. That way, all my future plans are scheduled, are together, and not a bunch of lists I have to keep track of. That's where I like having one board for everything for my to-do items. And then I put the things that are like due at a certain date on the calendar. Sometimes I'll put due dates in Trello, but I find I don't keep track of things very well when I do that. But making the daily list. Every night before I go to bed, I take all the items on my calendar for the next day and append it to the end of a text file as a daily to-do list, so I know exactly what I'm doing when I wake up. This list contains scheduled tasks: 2 p.m. meeting with Madonna, 4 p.m. office hours, errands, sign a form, return a book, and work items: review a paper, prepare a presentation. It also lets me think about whether I've got the right amount of work for a day. Anything I don't want to do tomorrow, I'll shuffle back into my calendar on a later date. If the task is too big, I'll break it down into a piece for tomorrow, and the rest of it for another date. After doing this, I've gotten pretty good at estimating what I can finish in a day. Here's an example of the names, with the names replaced, so you can see what it looks like when I move a day's schedule from my calendar. Okay, so he's got it broken up into time boxes and all the different things to do. He's got hashtags in here. Okay, interesting. As a record, the daily to-do list is where I also take notes. So it's a to-do list that turns into a what done list. The best thing about these daily tasks is I keep them all in a single text file separated by dates. So I have a record of everything I've ever done and when I did it. My current file was created 9 years ago, and when I started my current job. It serves as a research notebook, as meeting minutes. I have 50,000 handwritten lines in one file now, documenting everything I've done as a professor and nearly every person I have met with, along with the notes that we discussed or ideas I've had. Here's what my list looks like at the end of the day, representing work accomplished. So he adds them as dashes after each of the things. Okay. All right. Shortcuts and features. I use a consistent writing style, so things are easily searchable, with a few shorthands. When I search for meet with, it shows that I have 3,000 scheduled meetings. I have some tags like idea for new ideas to revisit when I want project ideas, annual for things to put on my next annual report, next UI for things to add to the next time I run my next UI course. Okay. A text file is incredibly flexible at any point I can quickly glance to see what I've done that day and what's left. I usually keep an empty line between tasks completed and upcoming tasks. When a task is completed, I move the empty line. Any leftover tasks from the current day can go back into the calendar for when I want to tackle it again. But that is rare because tasks are already sized into what I can do on that day. I calculate aggregate statistics using the search box, or list all the lines containing a tag and other operations using my text editor. I use Ultra Edit because I'm familiar with it, but any text editor would have similar capabilities. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I haven't used Ultra Edit in forever. I think I used it, like, I tried it out. Oh, it's a paid product? Oh, I didn't know that. I think I tried it out on, like, when portableapps.com was a thing. Like, when I was, like, in school with a flash drive and I couldn't install anything on computers. I think I looked at it and played with it. This is, that's a long time ago. All right. This is where we were. Email. Email is obviously a part of my workflow. Everyone has all sorts of productivity advice around handling it, but I find a simple flagging system is sufficient. Flag red if it's something I need to deal with. Flag orange if I need to deal with it eventually, but requires some thinking or someone else to handle it. Flag yellow for emails I send that I'm waiting a reply for, so I know to follow up later. I'll flag emails as they come in whenever it's convenient. At the end of the day, I'll do a quick review of the orange and yellows to see if any of them need to be followed up or should become red. Some people's workflows revolve around obsessively clearing their inbox. I don't really care about keeping my inbox empty because then I feel like I have new work to do whenever email comes in. My daily routine looks like look at the daily to-do list I wrote last night to find out what I'm doing today. Do scheduled things on the list during the day. When I have free unscheduled time, do the floating tasks on my list and work on red flagged emails. At the end of the day, do a quick review of orange and yellows. Copy the next day's calendar items to the bottom of the text file. This process has a few nice properties. It's easy to immediately see what to do when I wake up. I don't need a reminder in my head the things to do later. Follow up on emails, future tasks, etc. It's easy to recall what's happened in the past and see how much I can actually accomplish in a day. There's no running to-do list with items that keep getting pushed back day after day. I use remote desktop so everything is accessible from every device. Okay, I do. I do a lot of this stuff the same way, similar way at least. My daily workload is completely under my control the night before. Whenever I feel overwhelmed with my long-term commitments, I reduce it aggressively by aggressively unflagging emails, removing items from my calendar that I'm no longer excited about doing, and reducing how much work I assign myself in the future. It does mean sometimes I miss some questions or don't pursue an interesting research question, but helps me maintain a manageable workload. So that's it. I'd love to hear from you if you try my system or have some ideas about it. All right. So this is actually kind of similar to what I do. Like I said, I have everything in Trello, and I have a bunch of different columns. I have like the backlog of items that I need to get done eventually. I've got recurring items that I don't want to keep typing out, that I just want to drag over, that will keep going through. I have the things that are on deck. They're things that I need to do more immediately. Things that I'm going to do tomorrow. Things to do today. Things I'm currently in progress. And then a couple of done columns. One for those recurring items so they go back and I don't delete them. And then the other is a done column. So I push items through that list, and every morning I go through and I have automated tasks that get issued onto my to-do list, and then I also will pull items off of that backlog, both backlogs, and I'll throw them on the list of things to do. And then I'll just kind of work my way through that stuff every day. What I don't have that he has is a running tab or a running list of all the things I've done, and then the notes attached to each of those items. That I think is actually pretty cool. And I've thought about like building a tool that takes all of those items that I've done and all the notes and stuff attached to them and logging them somewhere, putting them like in a database or something. Something I can report off of, so I can see like what days am I most productive, what days am I least productive, all that fun stuff. And mostly because the Trello API, all those items do get archived, so they're still around. but the Trello API really kind of sucks. It's slow. It's really slow. So pulling data out of it is just bad. Um, but what I do that similar to him is over here in my terminal, um, ah, um, I have this. This is my stream log. Well, I'm not super great about using it, but this is supposed to be my stream log. And so what I'll do, so I have just, my system used to be two parts. It would consist of a text editor with no plugins or anything, just a regular text editor. And then it would consist of a separate application that runs on the terminal that I called Stash Down. It's similar to there was a note-taking app called Stashpad, which was kind of like you would text yourself items in these lists, and it would just be filled with Markdown. And I really liked taking notes that way and like logging through a project like that. So I built my own because it was a paid product, and I was like, this is easy to build. So like for example, like so I've got the day headers here, and then the times, and each time represents a message. So like Monday, April 8th, right here is this third level header. And then I can be anywhere in the document and then type leader SDE, and that creates that's stash down entry. And now I've actually got a plugin in NeoVim that goes ahead and does this stuff for me. So it adds a new item in here, and I can say, you know, whatever I want, and it's all Markdown based. And if I want to view it, I just use Markdown preview, and then that sends it off, and that all gets synced into my my main folder with all my stuff that gets synced to my phone, my two computers, all that gets moved around. So and I could like source control it or something, but source control doesn't really, I don't want to have to like commit. I just want to like put items in there and then have it synced. And then I also have it on a server, and I'll access it from my phone on the server that way. And I find this is like a really good way. And I'll have like one note per like item that I'm working on. I'll have one note for like long running things like this. This is a stream log. I've got like a weekly retrospective, like these are the items I want to do this week, and then these are the tasks that I've accomplished, and then this is my like retrospective of my goals that I had for the week. And it's all in this format where it has the day and the time, and then it's broken down. It's smart enough to walk back and see if the previous date is the same or not, and then it'll input another line if it isn't. So this is kind of what I do, and that feels similar, but I'm not like using one file for my whole day. I'm using many files, so I can see the benefit of what he's doing. But I could also take all of my files and I could aggregate them together into some sort of view. Like I could just pipe all the files together and then just sort them and then tag them with the project. And then see everything in an aggregated view. And that might be a cool way to view my stuff. And then to have it like automatically log add all my like meetings I have might be good in there. But I usually throw meeting notes into the project specifically. So I don't really have like a whole need for that. But I like his system. I like what he has here. It seems like it's nice to work in, and it's simple. So all the things just get added to that file. There's only one file to deal with. So I like it. I think a lot of people overcomplicate what they do. And they have like things across like Notion and Obsidian, and they're like keep certain things and spreadsheets and stuff. And I think it's just, that's overcomplicated. You need something you can just quickly just write a note in and then go look through it later. And then if it's a text file, you can search through it. You can tag things with like hashes and stuff. So I think this and My Way are both valid approaches. I think they're both really good approaches. And I've also heard from a couple different sources. One of them was that stash pad tool that I use. That they found one of the things senior engineers did was have a text file and just add to it. And I've seen that some of my coworkers do the same thing. It seems like a common thing that works for a lot of people. And I think text is structured enough. You can structure it enough, especially like in my case with a plugin, that it becomes really nice to work in. So again, I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. I don't think there's any need to do anything crazy. I mean, I had friends in high school who would just text themselves things all the time, and that's essentially what I'm doing. I've got this big long conversation with myself basically, and I've got like to-do list items in there and everything. It just depends on what I'm doing, and it really helps mostly because a lot of times when I step away from my desk, go to the bathroom, get water or whatever, I lose context of what I'm doing. And then by the time I get back, I have no idea where I was. But if I take a quick second before I leave my desk to write a note, I'll find that I can pick things up way faster. A lot of times without even looking at the note, because I took the note before intentionally, and I'm intentionally saving that in my brain. So that helps out a lot. So, interesting. Good article. So this was by Jeff Wong. Go follow his blog. Go check out all of his other stuff. jeffwong.com. I don't think he has like a link to any socials or anything on here, but this was really good. I liked it a lot. So if you liked this video, please press the like button, maybe subscribe so you can see more videos like this. We record them starting 7 p.m. Pacific time every Monday. And have a good one. And oh, my voice almost gave out there halfway through that. I'm not used to this anymore. Talking through meetings this week is going to be rough. Okay, so there was a lot of stuff I missed over vacation, and the week before I didn't do a stream either. So, yeah. What should we do? We've got like AI journalism. That might be interesting. The effect of AI on journalism might be interesting. So, yeah, maybe we'll try it out. We might not keep it. We might not keep this one. Just because it might end up being like a kind of a nothing article. But I try not to read these before I record them. I try to just look at the blurbs and the title and maybe the length. And sometimes I know like the person who wrote it, and I'll know if it's probably good or not. But so some of these might get thrown away. So we'll see how this one is, especially because it's like kind of out of the tech realm. So, and we'll see how this does. So need another drink of water. And then I'll need another marker too. Marker, AI, journalism. Start. All right. Anti-scale, a response to AI in journalism. Journalism can no longer chase Silicon Valley's tail in hopes of salvation. We need self-determined vision for what journalism on the web is, who it's for, and how we build it. All right. Let's start here. Gallup's annual media trust survey said in 2023 that only 32% of Americans trust journalism to report news in a fully fair and accurate way. Yeah, I'd fall in the other 68% there. I don't necessarily trust all of the news media, but that's just me. People don't trust journalism. That's bad enough. But by any conceivable metric, journalism's foray online has failed. Consider journalists employed, revenue, or countries with no news source. All have gotten markedly worse over the last 2 decades. Each year, fewer people produce journalism and more people tune out entirely. And I find more and more ads on the mainstream media sites as well. Like, it gets crazy. But as the industry has declined without fail, news organizations have failed trying to find the magic solution that would solve all their digital woes. Today, that savior is generative AI. No, it's not. It's really not. Can you imagine ChatGPT like writing the news? Like, I mean, I'm sure it already is somewhere, but can you imagine that? Like, it just spits out stuff based on like bullet points or something someone collects, and then all of a sudden you've got like hallucinated wars and stuff going on around the world, like that aren't real, but the model thought based on the things that was what was happening. So yeah, that's what it spit out. At least there at the very least there needs to be some oversight. But I find like a lot of the stuff it writes and other AIs write is like it gets repetitive and bland. It's like an average of all the stuff. Like, it's too upbeat. There's not really good inflections either way in a piece that it generates. But anyway, in reality, generative AI is another hyped solution from a tech industry with no interest in healthy civic media ecosystem. Probably true. However, unlike many earlier supposed saviors, generative AI presents existential risk. With the technology's ability to create plausible but often false content at unprecedented scale, it costs a lot, but I mean, it costs less than somebody writing things. But anyway, AI generated content threatens to overwhelm the web with BS. See Harry Frankfurt. Oh, there's a book. It is now or never for the journalism industry to set its own course on the web. Journalism can no longer chase Silicon Valley's tail in hopes of salvation. We need a self-determined vision for what journalism on the web is, who it's for, and how we build it, instead of embracing AI and competing with scale. I propose the anti-scale approach to technology and journalism. Anti-scale. That's interesting. Why generative AI is not the answer. Silicon Valley will say that generative AI can fully automate journalism, both reducing costs and producing better content. No, not well. I mean, that may be what's being sold to the VCs and the public, but that's not what you're gonna get based on the current crop of LLMs. So, yeah, you can bill that as a future thing all you want, but I think there's only so far that GPTs can scale right now, as far as quality, but we'll see. It cannot. Generative AI, specifically large language models like ChatGPT, are designed to predict the next word in a sentence. That makes for plausible but not necessarily accurate text. This is what I've been saying forever. It's a text prediction machine. It's not it's great at making things that look good. It's fancy autocomplete is really all it is. So it's not for things that are right. It's for things that look good. But anyway, this is the hallucination problem, where the language model makes up bits of text that sound right but have no basis in reality. Recently, this showed up in Michael Cohen's court case where he used an LLM that generated false legal citations. Yeah, it just basically is like, that sounds right, and if it doesn't exist but looks right, it'll go with it. Like, it has no concept of truth or not truth. It just knows, like, hey, that thing looks good. It's a pattern generator, essentially. um it should be obvious that any technology prone to making up facts is a bad fit for journalism, but the Associated Press, the American Journalism Project, and Alex Springer have all inked partnerships with OpenAI. According to these deals, providing LLMs with more accurate information as part of the training set will produce more accurate responses. It will produce more convincing responses, but if it, I mean, all right, well, not if. It's a lot like Copilot, like GitHub Copilot. Like when you're writing code with Copilot, it generates things that look right, but either don't compile, or when they're run, they completely fall apart, or they're broken in really subtle ways that you won't see until they've been in production or run through a test suite, like a QA suite. It's bad. Like it can really bite you. That and when you write it yourself, I find that I've like think through the problem enough that I avoid most of those issues. So this is really interesting to me, that they're billing these as being able to provide more accurate responses, because they shove tons of data through these things in training, and they still hallucinate answers because that's, it's just part of the architecture of what a GPT is and how it works, like how the transformer architecture works. It's predicting the next word. It's not, it has no concept or reasoning, um essentially. And I know a lot of people would argue with me on that point, but I haven't seen a model do significant research reasoning, yet anyway. So that's one of the reasons I haven't been worried by Devin, because it, there's no way it may be able to solve like the simple stupid tasks, but for the most part it's unable to do deep reasoning beyond just a few messages. And the context windows have grown, and the accuracy hasn't really improved any. Like they just kind of like forget where they're at and they start spewing garbage, and it's just really really weird. So anyway, I don't believe any amount of accurate information provided to an LLM meaningfully eliminates that hallucination problem. But let's assume they're right. Let's assume that in 2024, with access to a real-time feed of accurate news and information through a series of content partnerships, OpenAI releases GPT-5, a new LLM that never hallucinates and always gives up-to-date accurate answers. Even in this world, generative AI still does not solve the most crucial problems facing the news industry. Remember, less than a third of Americans trust journalism to report fairly and accurately. And even less will trust journalism if they're all run by AI, because it will hallucinate things that people will look at in real life and say that's obviously not true. Like that cannot be true. It'll hallucinate facts and statistics, and it will be terrible. But combine that with another recent survey result, the Computing History Museum and Embold research found that 80% of Americans are concerned by news organizations using AI. Yeah, like everybody thinks it's not a good idea. It's not. It's not what we want. But it's cheaper, so the news organizations are really looking to make that happen. It's a lot cheaper to pay for tokens coming out of an LLM. But it's not clear yet if the cost of doing a review on what the LLM creates is good. It's also not clear that the articles will do as well as ones generated by people. And it's also not clear if you train all of these LLMs on a bunch of journalism from the past, and you start shoving in more AI driven journalism, you get this like cyclical cycle of like the AI is training on things that it's written, and you end up with problems from that. Like it's like an inbreeding problem where you run out of things to train on, and the only things to train on are things you've created, and you get this feedback loop where weird things can start becoming patterns that the LLM starts spitting out, and it becomes really hard. I think the future GPT implementations, GPT 5, 6, 7, 8, are all going to run into this problem where the all the data they're pulling off of the internet is all, like a good portion of it at least, is going to be AI generated, and they can't know easily whether or not it was. So they're going to ingest it, and they're going to come up with all sorts of problems with it. And one argument against this, I guess, is that if there's a human reviewing the data coming out, the articles coming out, then maybe there's some level of like sign off, like, yes, this makes sense, yes, this is good. But I'd imagine some of those problems still exist, and some people are just gonna put it out there without reading it. They're gonna just stamp a LGTM looks good to me on it and send it out. So it's gonna be interesting. So, when asked about specific tasks news organizations might use AI for, like write news stories for human review or to fact check information for news articles, don't ask to, don't ask it to fact check anything. It will, like, it'll figure out the weirdest thing. Like, it'll say, yeah, that looks good to me. Of course, certainly. I I wouldn't trust it to do. I wouldn't trust any of the current crops of models to do fact checks. Like, maybe as like a first pass, but somebody's still got to go check everything that is written there. A majority of Americans are not comfortable with any task except one: translating news content into other languages. Yeah, that's probably fine. Mostly because that is a really established field. Google Translate works well. So, you know, um, they've seen firsthand that it works. The public has not seen firsthand that ChatGPT produces results that are accurate. They've seen the opposite. They've seen the hallucinations. They get the idea, but there's no implementation right now that works well for them. So, anyway, even if this survey is off by 10 percentage points, the numbers are overwhelming. Americans don't want AI generated news content. There will be like there will be a whole cottage industry of like non AI generated news, like artisanal handcrafted news, and then there'll be like these huge scandals to find out, like, oh, AI was actually writing that the whole time, it was just human reviewed, or something like that. This is gonna be a weird future, I think. If they really do go all in on this stuff, like, there's gonna be some strange things. If we consider trust a baseline metric for our industry, surely journalism can't jump into bed with a technology that overwhelming majority of Americans distrust, especially with the industry already at such a trust deficit. Yeah, that's a problem. Let's speculate further. Perhaps in my hypothetical GPT-5 world, people become more trusting of AI generated content when they see it as more dependable. This is where we get to the crux of the matter. Look at the media that people respond to today. Nearly as many people subscribe to a Patreon creator as subscribe to the New York Times, and that's just one individual creator driven platform. TikTok's whole appeal is to endlessly feed people of on TikTok's whole appeal is an endless feed of people on camera. People are looking for connection on the web. A journalism industry that moves away from people and connection towards automation and anonymity is one that can't bridge the trust gap. Journalism is at its best humans telling stories. To be clear, LLMs have useful capabilities. Through the chatbot UI paradigm is not likely to surface them very well. Imagine the best possible version of Grammarly, able to restructure and simplify language for a writer struggling to explain different concepts. Already, AI tools are making transcription a pointless task. Designer Maggie Appleton has written about how LLMs can help us, and I highly suggest you read her work. I might look at that later. Um, and I highly suggest you read her work. As a targeted and limited tool, LLMs can help, though we must ask if they are worth the exorbitant energy costs and privacy concerns. These will be mitigated probably. I have to guess these will be mitigated. Things will become more efficient, and the privacy concerns will be addressed for the most part, or they won't be. Like IoT today, like it just really wasn't addressed. So we'll see. Um, as a panacea for what ails journalism, they can do very little. In fact, they likely do more harm than good. They're too it's too enticing for the companies who want to save a buck. I think we might see one possible scenario here is that traditional media jumps on this because of the ever churning need to turn profits. Like it could turn out that they make the wrong decision in the hopes of gaining short-term profits, and they replace large swaths of writers with or editors with AI. I think that could happen, but when you do, I think that those organizations, the brands themselves that are already damaged, will fall apart even more. Um, and that'll only get worse and worse as they buy into that more and more. So that tells me that I think maybe you'll see big names in media fall apart, and then there'll be these new up and coming players for a while that will endeavor to do good journalism. They'll find that it's hard to compete with the bigger ones potentially, because bigger ones will be stealing all the ad revenue because of volume. But I don't know. It may create, like I said, this whole cottage industry of like boutique news outlets with real people on the ground, and maybe video becomes more important again, like than written media. I mean, written media has always struggled, I think, compared to like video. So, but video's possibly going to be the same thing. Like we're going to see like AI generated news videos, which is a terrifying concept, and I don't want to get into that right now because that's a whole nother problem. But yeah, there might be this cycle that starts to happen, and we might actually still see some good journalism go on. Anyway, against scale, generative AI falls in a long line of journalism panaceas that promise salvation through scale. More content, more readers, more revenue, just more. This is the chasing the profit for the publicly traded company. Like the you must make profit or else you're breaking the law is a problem. Um, I think the fact that companies have a fiduciary duty to the shareholders to make them money is the core problem of a lot of things in this world. And I think it's a problem to journalism, and it may turn out to bite the industry. And maybe privately held journalism companies will be able to make it. We'll see. The industry has spent years optimizing its editorial workflows, publishing practices, and philosophies around the idea of scale. As its proponents would have it, generative AI is the next logical step in efficiency. In fact, generative AI promises to destroy scale-driven strategy. It is now trivially easy and cheap for anyone to produce online content. Any attempts to compete in scale while still maintaining journalistic integrity will inevitably fail in the face of endless fraudulent content with no scruples. Consider this simple cost analysis from Maggie Appleton. ChatGPT currently costs a fraction of a cent to generate 1,000 tokens words, meaning that it would cost only 2 cents to generate 100 articles of 1,000 words. If we used a more sophisticated architecture like prompt chaining, the cost would certainly be higher, but still affordable. Given that these creations are cheap, easy to use, and fast, and can produce nearly infinite amounts of content, I think we're about to drown in a sea of information garbage. I think we're already starting to I think we're already neck deep. We'll see. We're going to be absolutely swamped by masses of mediocre content. Every marketer, SEO strategist, and optimizer bro is going to have a field day filling Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Google search results with masses of keyword stuffed optimized generated crap. And those search engines are going to be fighting back to detect AI content and remove it. So Google's in an interesting position because they're a producer of AI content, and then they're also a consumer of a ton of AI content, and that really makes them that's kind of a difficult position to be in. Not that their AI endeavors with Gemini have been anything to write home about so far. Instead of trying to compete, journalism must reject the scale-driven paradigm in favor of deeper connection and community. Yeah, focus on who you're creating for, and focus on what you're writing about, rather than the amount. Rather than embracing the scale promised by AI-generated content, journalism must distinguish itself through what Jennifer Brandel and Mara Zapata call AE, or actual experience. Actual experience is the human, three-dimensional, beating heart, sweaty side of life. Here, defining terms is useful. Actual, existing in fact, typical as contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. No, not believed or expected or intended. Oh, existing in fact, typically as contrasted. Yes, yeah. So you might not even want to contrast when you're writing, but you might just focus on the facts would be the best thing, I think. Experience, practical contact with and observation of facts or events. Yeah, that's helpful as well. Developing some kind of automated AI news service is not going to push the needle on growing trust in the media. If anything, it adds to the backsliding. But what has been proven to increase trust in information is human face-to-face interactions and relationships. For Brandel, this means moving relationship building forward as a central job to be done in the news through active participation in communities and local events. But she concludes that AI might be coming for many of the jobs that journalism used to do, leaving technical, transactional, and AI-related jobs to the industry to maintain those efficiencies brought about by AI. I don't know. I think it's coming for jobs in organizations that make the wrong choice here. There's two paths before them. They can either create AI generated content or they can not. And if they go the AI generated content route, it will become more and more enticing to them to just do it all that way and ditch all their writers. But if they do that, they're going to lose all their viewers and readers as well. Because the readers are going to get tired of hearing the same sort of things, and they're going to get tired of the lies that already pervade the industry. It's going to be worse, and they're not going to be like intentional biases or anything. They're just going to be the models, like thinking that the model's like predicting the next thing that looks right, and it's going to be bad. So, as stated above, I believe AI will not be helpful but harmful to journalism, thus leaving technologists in the news open to participating in building actual experience. Technology can be a core contributor to creating deeper, more trustworthy, fulfilling products for people. To get there will require significant reframing of what we do and why. I don't think it's even a focus on relationships for journalism. I don't think that like they should be like working on like a relationship with the viewer outside of they should be focusing on trust. Like these are the facts that happened. These are the things that happened and report them as such in an unbiased manner. That's what I want to see out of journalism. I don't want the journalist to have a relationship with me. Like I don't necessarily need to like trust this journalist. I just need to know that what I'm being reported to and what is being reported on is factual and is the opinion pieces are clearly marked as opinion, and then the fact pieces are fact, and there's no like entertainment or sensationalization. I don't want any of that. I just want this is what's happening. That's what I want as a reader of the media. That's what would make me start to trust media more, is just the things that are being covered are the important things in the world and they're being covered correctly. That would be the ideal to me. So I think they're kind of missing a point here, but let's continue on. Instead of embracing AI and competing through scale, the anti-scale approach to technology and journalism recenters the practice on helping people find information and solve problems. Is it the journalist's job to help people solve problems? No. Find information, maybe, but not solve problems. They're there to report on the problems and the good things, both. It might sound obvious, but as technologists, we lost sight of our purpose somewhere along the way of measuring page views, recirculation, click rate, funnels, and churn. We call people users. We measure loyalty like a feudal lord. Our technology revolves around getting users in the door and locking it behind them. It's important that we get an email address and a few seconds of a video ad view that is than it is that people get information they need. We have to stop chasing tens of millions of page views and think that means success. Well, right now that is success, right? Like the point is to make money, and the incentive structure is set up such that page views and clicks on ads are the moneymaker. Driving subscriptions to news outlets is not the goal. The incentive structure where money is actually made on the internet right now is through page views and through exposure. And until that changes, that problem will not change. Even with human written media, like we've already seen it, like it's all about clicks. Like it's how do I act? It's like you can have the same thing on Twitter and YouTube and all that. It's about getting not clickbait, but just clickbaity enough for people to click on it, but not clickbaity enough that people see it as clickbait. So you kind of have this like deception that you have to run when you're creating thumbnails and titles of articles and videos and things. You have to get just that little bit of interest that to hook that user in and then pull them into your article. And the reason for that is strictly that you need them to look at that page. You need them to watch that video. You need them to reply to that post and like that post. So until the incentive structures change, this chasing scale is not going to stop. Even if you avoid AI media, this isn't going to stop. So communities are fractal, and individual information needs are specific. One size fits all approach will not work to meet the information needs of a diverse public. Our technology needs to help journalism meet people where they are to more easily adapt to rapidly changing digital contexts. How did we do this in 2024? As always, there are no easy answers, but I'll be spending my year thinking about it, and here are some early questions I'm asking. How might we build tools to help journalists find and foster digital communities amid a fractured social media ecosystem? Um, how might we build products that differentiate good journalism in an ocean of AI generated content? Yeah, yeah. That comes down to the search engines a lot of times and the news aggregators. How might we quantitatively measure the impact of journalism? That's a qualitative metric on its own. I don't think there's any way to quantitatively measure that. So yeah, so this was a good article overall. I mean, like I said, I disagreed on the one point. I think journalism should be focused on facts and not relationship building. I don't think you should be building relationships with your the people. I think you should be reporting on the facts. But yeah, go follow them on Mastodon or Blue Sky. So this article was by Tyler Fisher. And it was pretty good overall. And I do think this is going to be a problem. I think that AI journalism is an issue. I think that the hallucinations alone are enough to cause news organizations. I think they should have pause before they start to use it and before they start letting writers use it. But that's the thing. Like the writers may use it and it may get passed off as a regular work, as like a regular work. You might not be able to stop it. So that's the more scary angle here. But yeah, I thought this was interesting. I think this is something that everyone needs to stop and think about a little bit. Like how are we going to move forward with this? And I don't think that overall the things that are being billed as opportunities for AI are going to be good in the long run. I think given the current crop of LLMs and like the progression they've made, I don't see them being trustworthy enough, even in the next 10 years, 15 years, to take over journalist jobs. So, um, anyway, tell me what you think. Like, subscribe. If you want more videos like this, tell me in the comments how I'm right or wrong. Tell me what you think about this. Um, Go subscribe to Tyler Fisher's blog. He seems to write pretty good articles. So, if you want to see more of these, if you want to be around when these are recorded live, we record them every Monday on stream on Twitch. Link is in the description. That's starting at 7 p.m. So, have a good one. All right. Another one in the can. Okay, I'm going to go take a quick break. Um, but I will be right back. All right. I think I can really only do another one of those. My voice is like killing me. I'm not used to this apparently. And there was one other one that I really wanted to cover. And that was the XZ vulnerability that I missed out on covering before. Um, or actually, I think it was like last week. I wanted to read more about it and see what was going on here. So yeah, let's add a marker. And let's get into it. Okay. Um the date, Friday, 29th, March 2024. Okay, subject, backdoor in upstream XZ lib LZMA, leading to SSH server compromise. Hi. After observing a few odd symptoms around libLZMA, part of the XZ package, on Debian SID installations over the last weeks, logins with SSH taking a lot of CPU Valgrind errors, I figured out the answer. The upstream XZ repository and the XZ tarballs have been backdoored. At first, I thought this was a compromise of Debian's package, but it turns out to be upstream. Compromise release tarball. The portion of the backdoor is solely in the distributed tarballs. For easier reference, here's a link to the import tarball, but it's also present in the tarballs 5.6.0 and 5.6.1. That line is not the upstream source of built to host, nor is the build to host used by XZ and Git. However, it is present in the tarballs released upstream except for the source code links, which I think GitHub generates directly from the repository comments. This injects obfuscated script into to be executed at the end of configure. The script is fairly obfuscated and data from test XZ files in the repository. This build is executed, and if some preconditions match, modify build make file to contain the test bad3 corrupt LZMA2 XZ, leaving out the bash that produces this. This is what I saw in posts online. What is it doing? It is injecting arbitrary bytes. This leads to the attached injected.txt. The test files containing the bulk of the exploit are in an obfuscated form in the bad3 corrupt LZMA2 and the good large compressed LZMA committed upstream. They were initially added at here. Note that the files were not even used for any tests in 5.6.0. But it's in the test code section, which is what is a problem. Interesting. Interesting. These issues were attempted to be worked around in 5.6.1, for which the exploit code was when adjusted. Given the activity over several weeks, the committer is either directly involved or there was some quite severe compromise of their system. Unfortunately, the later looks like less of a likely explanation, given they communicated on various lists about the fixes mentioned above. Florian Weimer first extracted the injected code in isolation, also attached libLZMA LACRC64 fast.o. I had only looked at the whole binary. The attached deobfuscated script is invoked first after configure, where it decides where to modify the build process to inject code. These conditions include targeting only x86 Linux. Interesting. Building with GCC and the GNU linker. Okay, running as part of the RPM package build. Particularly the latter is likely aimed at making it harder to reproduce the issue for investigators. Due to the working of the injected code, it's likely the backdoor can only work on the glibc based systems. I wonder if it's like if it's like redirecting parts. Well, it is. It's got to be redirecting parts of the code based on their locations. They're like memory locations. Have not widely been integrated by Linux distributions, and where they have mostly in pre-release versions. Okay, so this was caught early then, which is good. That means that most people don't use pre-release Linux. So I think that will be that's good. This was caught early. With the backdoored LZMA installed, logins via SSH become a lot slower. Yeah, it's like 600 milliseconds difference. Wow. Interesting. OpenSSH does not directly use liblzma. However, Debian and several other distributions patch OpenSSH to support systemd notification, and libsystemd does depend on... Oh, libsystemd does. Oh, that means a lot of things. A lot more than SSH could be backdoored here. Initially, starting SSHD outside of systemd did not show the slowdown, despite the backdoor briefly getting invoked. This appears to be some sort of countermeasure to make analysis harder. Observe requirements for the exploit. This is a complicated exploit. Like, it's set up to work in a very specific scenario. So, and I have heard a little bit about this outside of this. I did not keep this article completely to myself before I looked at it, but or I did not look at anything because I was kind of actually worried about my servers that I run, that they were vulnerable. But this is a complex attack to like go through a dependency and then have some sort of code injected at that point, and then have that dependency gets used by a lot. If it's systemd based, there are so many things running that code, and it's specifically looking for the compression involved with the SSH sessions, which is really interesting to me. So I wonder what exactly, if that's the only target here. I've heard there's a lot more to be uncovered here than what this initial report has, but that's a big one. Stealing private keys essentially is a huge deal. So observe requirements for the exploit. Term variable is not set. Arg needs to be, LD debug are not set. Lang needs to be set. Oh yeah, so they basically tried to turn it off when it's being debugged. Some debugging environments like RR appear to be detected. Wow. Plain GBD appears to be detected in some situations, but not others. To reproduce outside of systemd, the server can be started with a clear environment, setting only the required variable. Okay. In fact, OpenSSH does not need to be started as a server to observe the slowdown. Okay, interesting. Would also have an effect. There's obviously a lot of servers linking to libsystemd. That's most Linux operating systems these days are using systemd. I am not a security researcher nor a reverse engineer. There's lots of stuff I've not analyzed, and most of what I've observed is purely from observation rather than exhaustively analyzing the backdoor code. To analyze, I primarily use perf record diverges between the backdoor being active and not, then also GBD setting breakpoints before the divergence. The backdoor initially intercepts execution by replacing the ifunc resolvers with different code, which calls get CPU ID, injecting into the code, which previously would just be static inline functions. In XE 5.6.1, the backdoor was further obfuscated, removing symbol names. These functions get resolved during startup because SSHD is built with those flags, leading to all symbols being resolved early. If started with LD bind not, the backdoor does not appear to work. Does not match completed variable is 0 and intercepts it, returning the normal CPU ID result. It gets more interesting during the CRC64 resolve. In the second invocation, CRC64 resolve appears to find various information like data from the dynamic linker, program arguments, and environment. Then it performs various environment checks, including those above. There are other checks I've not fully traced. If the above decides to continue, the code appears to be parsing the symbol tables in memory. This is quite a slow step that made me look into the issue. Notably, liblzma's symbols are resolved before many other libraries, including the symbols in the main SSHD binary. This is important because symbols are resolved, the GOT gets renamed to read-only thanks to those things. To be able to resolve symbols in libraries that have not been yet loaded, the backdoor installs an audit hook into the dynamic linker, which can be observed with GDB using. Wow. Okay. It looks like the audit hook is only installed for the main binary. That hook gets called from the audit symbind for various symbols into the main binary. It appears to be waiting for RSA decrypt PLT to be resolved. When called for that symbol, the backdoor changes the value of public decrypt to point to its own code. Okay. That's bad. I'm not 100% sure what that function does. I know it has to do with I'm not 100% sure the implications of replacing this function are, but I know it has to do with the authentication process. And that's not good. It does not do this via the audit hook mechanism, but outside of it. For reasons I do not yet understand, it does change the ST value and the value of the audit hook to be different value, which then leads to the audit symbind to do nothing. Why change anything at all then? After the audit hook is uninstalled again, probably to stop any future linking to fail, because if it's being called all over the place, like, you don't want that thing left in there. So I guess you uninstall it. You don't want it to be detected. That's probably another reason that it gets uninstalled. It's possible to change the got.plt contents at this stage because it's not and can't yet be remapped to be read-only. I suspect there are further changes performed at this stage. Impact on SSHD. The prior section explains that RSA public decrypt PLT was redirected to point to the backdoor code. The trace I was analyzing indeed shows that during the public key login, the exploit code is involved. Okay. The backdoor calls in a libcrypto, presumably to perform normal authentication. I have not yet analyzed precisely what is being checked for in the injected code and allow unauthorized access. So basically, they can probably, based on this, they can probably provide their own custom key and be validated on any server. That's probably their goal. You provide that public key to any SSH server with the affected backdoor, and you're in to whatever access level you want, root, user level, whatever. So that's bad. That's really, really bad. Since this is running in a pre-authentication context, it seems to allow some form of access or other form of remote code execution. I'd upgrade any potential vulnerability system ASAP. Given the apparent upstream involvement, I have not reported the upstream bug, as I initially thought it was a Debian-specific issue. No, that's like a almost every Linux distribution issue, every major distribution. Red Hat assigned this issue CVE 2024-349. Injected. I want to see what this is. So what are we doing here? This is the injected stuff. If get CAPUID, good large compression, bad corrupt LZMA2, have func attribute, then do that. I don't know enough about this project to understand exactly what's going on here. Yeah, I'm not getting a ton out of this. But it's interesting how it injects during the testing process, is what it looks like, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really, really kind of a complicated endeavor here. It's crazy. So let's go look something up. Let's go look at another article. This is a classic. This was used. Log4j was used with this meme. XZUtils, formerly LZMA utils, is a set of open source command line tools and libraries for lossless data compression, the most notable tool being XZ. The toolset comes installed by default on most Linux distributions. Microsoft Andres Friend, I'm sorry for butchering that name, a Microsoft software engineer, alerted the open source community about a SSH backdoor in XZ version 5.6.0 and 5.6.1. When benchmarking Postgres changes, if you run Debian testing unstable or some more bleeding edge distribution, I recommend you update ASAP. Doing some micro benchmarking at the time and needed the quintessence of the system to reduce noise. Saw SSHD processes were using a surprising amount of CPU despite immediately failing because of wrong usernames, etc. Profile DSSHD showing a lot of CPU time in liblzma with perf unable to attribute it to a symbol. Got suspicious, recalled I had seen an old Valgrind complaint in automated testing of Postgres weeks earlier after package updates. Really requires a lot of coincidences. The SSH backdoor would allow remote unauthenticated attackers to achieve remote code execution on infected systems, bypassing the authentication in place. For the information available at the time of writing, the backdoor seems to work only on Linux when the SSH, the 64-bit version, when the SSH server is run by a service by systemd. Moreover, the library would have been installed by a package manager. For the exploit to work, one should also expose the SSH server to the internet so the attacker can interact remotely with it. So this is a... Okay, let's look at this. Uh, 2021, this person creates his GitHub account. The first commit to the XZ repo was in 2022. Potential infrastructure testing. Add iFunc implementation to this.c. PR opened in OSS Fuzz to disable iFunc for testing build, allegedly to mask the malicious changes. Interesting. .m4 file added to the git ignore, later incorporated to the package release. Oops, that tipped their hand a little bit. Obfuscated encrypted stages binary backdoor hidden in 2 files. Bad3 corrupt lzma.xz and good large compression lzma. The macro is executed during build process and runs the malicious code below. So it does a replacement gl map tr. Interesting. Substitution to the corrupt malform xz file are replaced with white spaces replaced with that. Okay, so there's some obfuscation. Stage 1 bash file. Bytes in comment, custom substitution, byte value mapping. Check if script is running on Linux. Custom substitution, byte value mapping. Decompress the files. Remove junk data from the file using multiple head tool calls. Portion of the file is discarded. Contains the binary backdoor. Use of custom substitution ciphers to decipher the data. It's decompressed using XZ. So he's like using XZ to obfuscate and encrypt and decipher the data. Wow. An O file extracted into the compilation linking. Extract and decipher the compressed LZMA, manipulate the file with sed, decrypt it with an awk script, decompress it with XZ, and then it's stored as an object file. Is added to the compilation linking process, and from there it's all history. Then there's the crazy loading of the symbols and remapping of things. That's crazy. Wow. It's insane. They opened their first PR, added error text warning, untarring with BSD tar. Made their first appearance on the project, then Jiantan submitted a patch via the mailing list. While the patch itself is irrelevant, it followed the appearance. Also in this discussion, Jiatan mentioned working with Lassie off list and hints at his crucial future role in the project. Finding a co-maintainer. Wow. Merge their first commit and become the primary contact email in the OSS fuzz, signaling the trust they achieved in the project. Wow. So they just took over in January of 2023. This was a serious long game here. Wow. This is insane. I don't think I'm going to go through like all of this, but this is insane that something like this can happen. Like in plain sight. I mean, you can't know based on the code. Like it doesn't, if you don't know how the library works, if you don't know how XZ works, like that code means nothing to you. Like it just looks like part of a test. Like you can't, you see that it's kind of odd, but you don't really know what it does, so you don't want to touch it. So I think there's this big problem where things look wrong in code and then they're hard to audit because nobody who looks at that is able to actually comprehend what it does, is ultimately the problem. other than the person who wrote it. And now everyone on the internet is trying to figure out what it does, and nobody really truly knows all the things. All they know is that it ultimately can lead to privilege escalation and remote machine um, compromise. So it's crazy to me that things like this can happen in plain sight. And it also tells me like these maintainers of these libraries, like these are key core libraries. That library is used all sorts of places. If systemd depends on it, then everything that runs on systemd inadvertently depends on it and could potentially be a problem. So I mean, I that's insane. Like they had the level of access where they could compromise much more than just remote SSH connections. It probably would have been found out faster, and they were still found out. But this makes me wonder how many backdoors like this are out there running on Linux systems today. How many scripts look like that and actually contain backdoor code? And at least in Linux, you have the opportunity to audit and potentially find that backdoor. But in operating systems like Windows or Mac, if things are closed source, you have no idea. You don't know. Like any employee in there could be doing this, and only the employees have access to that code. So you've got to assume that they're all compromised at some level. Like you've got to assume that this happens out in the wild. At least in Linux, you have the chance to catch it. In closed source OSs, you don't. Like it's just mind-boggling to me that stuff like this exists. But at least the wider community doesn't know about them yet. But that it does beg the question: who has access to your machine? Who out there has those backdoors installed? It could be any organization. So it could be probably mostly state sponsored with stuff like this. Like somebody was paid here, I'm sure, to do this. Like that's probably what happened. We'll see over time, like more and more about this as this unfolds. But this is crazy, and it makes you wonder what else is compromised out there. So anyway, I know I didn't provide a lot here. I just thought this was interesting and wanted to learn more about it. I was worried about my own systems. I'm glad it's only in like pre-release versions of Linux. It didn't make it to the mainstream for the most part, it looks like. So that's a good thing. But anyway, everybody keep your packages up to date to try to avoid situations like this. Although you can upgrade yourself into these situations too, so that's fun. But you're better off staying up to date. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe. If you didn't like it, drop a comment. Tell me what I got wrong. Tell me what I in this vast topic of obfuscated stuff. Tell me exactly what happened. Give me more insight into how this actually worked, because I would love to know more about it. So everybody have a good one. All right. It's crazy. It's insane that stuff like this happens. So, all right. Well, I am probably going to head to bed here. I think I need to wrap this up. My voice is failing. Like, I can barely talk. I'm about to have a coughing fit in the middle of an article. So, I will see you all later. Have a good night.